friends, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's Would You Be Mine, a bug deal, and really high five. And I have stamped those images out on some Spectrum Noir Ultra Smooth Premium White cardstock with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink. And I have wiped off the ink from the Beaver's tail because I'm actually going to be turning him into a groundhog today. So this card is once again for our current Lawn Fanatics challenge, which is Show Us Where You Live. I already did a card based on Presque Isle State Park, which is a park in my hometown. So this time I decided to go a bit more subtle and just do some nods to my home state of Pennsylvania. So the most famous animal from Pennsylvania is Punxsutawney Phil, which is a groundhog. If you're not from the States, on Groundhog Day, they bring out Punxsutawney Phil, and if he sees his shadow, it means 6 more weeks of winter. As I'm filming this card, Groundhog's Day was yesterday. He did see his shadow, unfortunately, which seems like he always does. But anyway, so I'm going to do Punxsutawney Phil for today, but it won't be a Groundhog's Day card since we're already past that. It's just going to be a birthday card featuring these little Pennsylvania state nods. You know, it's very subtle. So I colored him in with E50, E51, and E53 for the first layer, and I felt like his fur wasn't quite dark enough for a true groundhog. So I decided to add in E55 for the second layer, and then I just worked my way back all the way down and used that E50 again on his belly. Then for the pile of dirt, I'm going to keep that E55 and then add in E57 and E59. I'll also use these 3 shades to color in his nose. So that little pile of dirt is from a bug deal, but I thought it would be fun to have him kind of popping out of his little burrow under the ground. It's going to be his birthday in this little scene here, and then he's got a little worm friend also from a bug deal who's come to help him celebrate. I typically prefer to color darkest to lightest, so I started with that E59, blended out with the E57, and then used the E55 for a little bit of highlight. The next Copic combo that I'm using is R00, R01, and R02, and I'm going to give my groundhog some rosy cheeks using that. Use the R02 and blend it out with the R00. And then I'm going to use these 3 shades for the worm as well. Just coloring over the entire thing, and then I'm going to go back and color in a couple of the segments to be a little bit darker. So I'll add in the R11 for that, and I just picked 2 of those little sections to add that to, blend it out with the R02 and finish with the R01, and then I use the R02 and R01 to give him some rosy cheeks as well. And then I'm going to move on to my grasses. I'll use G20, G24, and G28 for those. Adding a little G28 on the part of the grass that is bent most away from the sun, and then blending that out with the G24, and then adding a touch of G20 at the very tip of each little blade of grass for a highlight. And then I'm going to color the rest of the accessory images in blue and gold because those are our state colors. It's the colors of like our license plates and things like that. So for the yellows, I'm using Y11, Y13, and Y15. And I'm going to do the tiny party hat and then every other stripe on the larger party hat and the ribbon on the birthday gift. And then for the blue shades, I'm going to use B24, B26, and B29. And again, I'll do every other stripe on that birthday hat and then the gift wrap on the birthday gift. And both the larger hat and the gift are from Really High Five. The smaller hat is from a bug deal. I really love how easy it is to mix and match the different sets, so you can just combine images and create your own unique scene. So I am going to take a white gel pen and just go over the little bit of black ink that was remaining from the beaver's tail. So he really does look like a groundhog. And then I'm going to add some white polka dots to my gift wrap just to give it a little extra something. Then I'll take a black Sakura Jelly Roll pen and go over the eyes of my groundhog. Just getting it started off to the side. This makes your eyes like nice and shiny, gives them a slight raised detail. I'm going to do it on the worm as well, just very carefully. And then I'll trim these images out with their matching dies. So Pennsylvania actually means Penn's Woods. It was founded by William Penn, and we do have a lot of forest here. So I'm going to use the forest backdrop, and I'm die cutting that out of some dark brown wood grain cardstock for the main portion. And then the trees I'm going to do out of noble fir and cilantro. I'll also take the grassy portion of the mushroom border and die cut that out of some noble fir cardstock. Then I'm going to take a piece of Bristol Smooth Surface cardstock, and I'm going to add a cloudy sky to that using the cloudy stencil and some broken china Distress Oxide ink. I haven't used this color in quite a while, but I wanted something that was more blue than aqua because I have the blue and gold accent pieces in my coloring. So that's why I chose the broken china, and I do like it. I'm glad that I used it today because it's just a color that I've gotten away from because there's so many newer colors that are nice to play with. So it's nice to go back to an old classic though every once in a while. So I'm going to add the little clouds by turning my stencil and getting a different cloud formation each time. I'm going to do 3 of these clouds. And then at the very bottom, I'm just going to add on some extra ink so it is more subtle and soft at the bottom, just like the rest of the clouds. Then I wanted to do some splatter on this background, especially since this is more of a simple card. I just wanted to add a little bit of extra interest. So I pressed more of that broken china ink onto an acrylic block, added some water to that to make it a little bit more fluid, and then I'm tapping that off the side of the block with a thin paintbrush till I get a nice little assortment of splattered droplets. Then I'll set that aside, and I'm going to move on to my lighter colored trees, the cilantro cardstock, and I'm going to darken up the edges of those using some Mowed Lawn Distress Oxide ink just to give them a little extra pop on the scene. So I did 2 of the larger size and 1 of the smaller ones. And I didn't worry about popping out those little insert pieces yet. We'll get to that in just a bit. But anyway, I'm going to switch over to the darker trees next, which are the noble fir. And I first started with some Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink, but it is almost the same shade as the noble fir cardstock, so it really didn't show up that well at all. And I was afraid that especially in photos, it really wouldn't be visible. So I'm going to switch that out for some pine needles, and I liked that much better. But this color a little goes a long way, so I'm just using a very small amount on those edges just to give them a little more definition. And then I'm going to grab my grassy border from the mushroom border, and I will add that to the top edge as well. So just very carefully adding that ink so I don't bend those grasses, and adding just a little bit of definition again at the top. Then I'm going to take the grassy border and glue that down to the cloudy background. I did use a larger piece of cardstock so I could just get that on there straight, and then I'll flip that over and trim off any excess using my Cutter Bee scissors. These are Teflon coated, so they're fantastic scissors, and they don't even get gunked up when you're cutting things that have glue on them. So Then I'm going to move on to the background piece, and I'm going to grab my little trees. I am popping out the centers from some of the trees now, not all of them, and we'll use those later on. So I'm going to add the larger tree first. I thought I would like to have the larger tree kind of pushed back in the distance and then the smaller tree in front. Now the problem with that I didn't realize until I started to layer that down is with those little pieces popped out, you can see the other tree behind. Whereas if I would have glued the smaller tree down first, you wouldn't have been able to see that. So that might be something that you want to think about when you're assembling this die, just which order you want to add these trees. I'm going to fix it, so it's not going to be a big deal, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to take the extra trees that I die cut out, and I wanted those to be behind because I wanted to make it look more full, like a forest. So I'm going to pop off the release paper from the foam tape that I added to the back, so that'll give it a little extra dimension as well. And then I'm lining that frame up over that tree where I want it, just carefully making sure that it's on there straight. And then I'll press that down, and that foam tape is going to pick up that other tree. So I'm going to repeat that process on the other side with this lighter tree. And this one, the little like center section that divides up the little pieces fell out, but you're not going to even notice it in the final card because it's basically covered up by the tree in front of it. But so I just pop those down, and then I'm going to peel off the rest of those release papers, and then I can line this up over that background piece and pop it down into place. So it'll just give me a little extra dimension. That really helps when you're creating a simple card to just have a little bit of dimension there. Just adds, you know, a little extra something. I added some liquid glue to the back of the trees that aren't popped up, and then I'm just going to press that down into place, like I said. So to get rid of the little snippet that you can see from the tree behind, I decided to fill in those gaps with the remaining cardstock, but I'm going to switch the colors. So I'll put the noble fir little pieces on the cilantro trees, and then vice versa. I'll put the cilantro pieces on the noble fir trees. And you don't have to do that. I just thought it would add a little extra separation between the sections. And I only worried about doing the ones in front. The trees in the back I just left as they were, since you only see just a little bit of those. I used my EK Success reverse tweezers to help me hang on to those and keep my fingers out of the glue. And then of course my favorite Bearly Art Precision Craft Glue. That little nozzle works so great for getting that glue behind on those tiny little thin die cuts. So I'm going to just add that last one. I had to use my fingers because I had to kind of slide it behind the other tree. And that top piece had gone missing, but I found it back on my die cutting machine on the plate. So I just grabbed that, and then I added that to finish off the trees. So once that's done, I'm ready to stamp my sentiment, and honestly I should have done the sentiment before I added the frame because this was a bit tricky, but it all worked out. I'm going to use part of a sentiment from Let's Toast and then the rest of the sentiment from Really High Five. So all together it's going to say, "Poppin' up to say happy birthday." And this would be really great to do as like an interactive card as well, but I just wanted to keep it more simple for today. So I think it's still a fun sentiment with him popping up out of the ground. I stamped that using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then for the card base, I'm using another piece of cilantro cardstock and stamping in Noble Fir ink. And I'm going to do some selective stamping here again so that we can make a woodchuck or a groundhog, whatever you call them where you live. And then I just use the You're Awesome from Really High Five. So I'm going to mask off the wood there so that I can hide my beaver's tail behind the stump. So we're going to get him placed how we want him, and then close the door of the MISTI to pick him up. And then we'll stamp him down twice as well, so all of the inking is consistent. And then when you peel off those masks, he's going to be hiding behind the stump, so he just looks like a woodchuck too. So now I'm ready to start assembling. I'm going to take that focal panel and add some liquid glue to the back of it, and then line it up on the front of my card base, making sure that all of the corners are aligned so it's nice and straight. And then I'll bring in my images. I'm going to go back to my cutter bee scissors to trim off the excess tail. So there he is, very cute. And I'm going to add the little dirt pile down below. So I'm kind of figuring out my placement before I commit with the glue. And once I'm ready, I will go ahead and glue him down first because I want to work back to front. So I'm going to have him, and then I'll take that pile of dirt and just add it so that it's kind of covering up his feet so it looks like he's popping out of the ground. Then I'll take those two grasses, and one I'm going to tuck on the left hand side. I dropped it with the glue on and it landed face up, which was like a miracle. That never happens, but anyway, I got lucky there. But I'm going to cover up the cut edge of him just because I'm not a perfect fussy cutter. So it kind of just hides any imperfections there. And then the other one I'll place down in front on the right. And I'll also take my little worm friend and put that down on the right hand side, right in front of that dirt pile. So he's going to wear that tiny little hat, so I'll add some liquid glue to the back of that and then carefully place that on his head at a little bit of an angle. And then the gift I'm going to tuck into the groundhog's hands, and that took a little bit of adjusting to get it how I wanted it. I ended up turning it a bit more tilted down toward the right hand side. And then I'll add his little party hat to the top of his head. I did feel like this card needed a little something extra, and I didn't want to add like butterflies or moths because I felt like those were too girly, and the same with sequins. So I ended up stamping out this little speech bubble that's also from a Bug Deal and put the word yay in it. And that is going to finish this one off. So I'll lift that up so you can see all the details and give you another peek at the inside. I really hope you guys enjoyed this little nod to my home state. I think it's very subtle. You probably would never ever know that if you didn't hear the story behind it. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you never miss a video. I post new ones every Monday and Friday. All of the products that I used today will be listed and linked for you in the description bar below. And if you'd like to keep watching, here are 2 extra videos I thought you might also enjoy. You can click on either one to check them out. I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. I'll see you soon in another video. Bye-bye.